for the special permit. The special permit meeting will start in a few minutes, okay? Just a couple of housekeeping rules. Establishment of a quorum. 4 positive votes are required from a 5-member board to approve an application. If only 4 members are present, the applicant has the right and must be given the option to defer the hearing to a date, time certain, when 5 members will be present. We do have 5 members here. So the first question I'm going to ask is the applicant satisfied that we will be able to have 5 members to render a decision?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So it is now 6:46, and the public hearing for the application of the special permit by Tetrahydra Agtech LLC will be open. Okay. Brian Vincent is going to be speaking on behalf of Tetrahydra Agtech. So, sir, would you proceed with your presentation? Okay. And just so that everybody knows, this is a continuation from last month when both parties agreed to continue the meeting to this month. Okay. And if we conclude the business tonight, then there will be no reason to continue. But again, at the end of the meeting, we will determine whether or not it has to, if it has to be continued, we will ask for a continuance at that time. All right. So, Brian, go ahead.
You ready, Bob?
Good. Okay, go ahead. Yes, your turn.
So since the last meeting, we finished our site plan, as you guys have all seen. We did make a couple modifications. We pulled the greenhouse forward to the front of the property, and we moved the outdoor cultivation to the back. That was due to the wetlands issue we had, and then also it was brought up to our security company that might be a better layout. The greenhouse we are designing now is it's going to be a closed loop system. So even though it's in the front, there won't be any smell getting released. It's all the HVAC equipment is closed loop. So any expelled air will be treated before it leaves the facility. We did talk to the police department about our security plan. They were happy with what we were proposing. One of the things was we would have an off-duty police officer during the summer times present on site, just if there was any problems at the quarry, it wouldn't overflow into, our business. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to hand it over to Steve to kind of go through the site plan, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions once he's done presenting.
Steve, would you please identify yourself first and last name and what you have to say about this?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Steve Mack from Foresight Land Services, and we prepared the revised site plan that's been submitted to the board in the last couple of weeks.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
His office.
Should I pull that site plan up to put on the screen? Would that be more convenient for people?
Yeah, it probably would be a good idea. I mean, I know that we've had it up on the website, and we have copies. All of the members of the board have copies here in front of us. We do have one on the table in front of us that I can hold up if necessary. But you can put it up on the screen, and just you can do that. And allow you to do that.
Yeah, she just needs to authorize me to share.
Yeah, share access.
Okay. And green it.
Yep. Okay, Steve, you should be good.
Okay. All right, can people see that?
Got it. Got it. That's the first page. Yes.
Okay. So I think everybody's very familiar with this site, but I'll just sort of recap the basics of the site to start and then go into the site plan. But this property is located on the north side of Quarry Road. It consists of 5.637 acres, which is the original Form A that was signed by the planning board. And that's a revision from the previous site plan where we had modified the property lines. The topography on the site is variable. It ranges from low and flat to mounded and undulating. And the soils on the site are gravelly and mostly pervious soils. And it's mixed woods, open space with logging roads and access roads. The property as configured, the 5.637 acres, conforms in all respects to the Becket zoning dimensional requirements with respect to lot size, frontage, setbacks, etc. So the minimum lot size requirement for this zone is 2 acres, but for the specific use that's being proposed, that's modified to 5 acres. So the lot is over 5 acres. In its present configuration. As Brian said, we've delineated the wetlands on the property, and there are areas subject to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act located on the property. And those areas are shown on this plan. You can see the sort of triangular labels throughout the property where it's bordering vegetated wetland and an intermittent stream, which runs east to west along the property line. So the project will be submitted to the Conservation Commission for a notice of intent for work within the buffer zone, and no wetlands themselves will be disturbed. There are no areas of 100-year floodplain on the property, and there's also no areas of endangered species on the property as mapped by Natural Heritage, so there's no requirements for endangered species. Access to the site is proposed to the southeast of the property. It'll be a 20-foot wide pervious paved driveway, and it'll have a maximum grade of 12%. Electric, telephone, etc., will come in by an existing utility pole located on Quarry Road and enter the building on the east side of the building. The facility will be served by propane. There'll be an underground propane tank, as well as an emergency backup generator on the property. The project is proposing 15 maximum employees in any given day. Those employees will operate in shifts of 7 or 8 throughout 2 shifts during the day. And as such, we're proposing 19 parking spaces, which includes a handicap accessible parking space. The zoning bylaw requires, I believe, 23 parking spaces for 35, I think it is, for a facility of this size based on the specific calculations. And we're asking for a waiver on the number of parking spaces. And that's because with a maximum employee count of 15 and its overlapping shifts of 7 or 8, you'll never have the need for that many parking spaces. It's just excess pavement and whatnot, and it's not needed. So that's the only waiver we're asking for under this application. We are proposing 13 new trees to be planted along the frontage. It's not specifically required under the bylaw, but there is discussion about landscaping and screening. So we're proposing to reinforce the wood line along Quarry Road with new vegetation. Lighting will be downward directed and shielded from any property lines. There'll be no lighting outside of the fenced-in facility, and there'll be no light trespass beyond the facility itself. Brian talked about odor control. If there are more questions about odor control, he can touch on that more for you. And then, sorry, I'm sort of got ahead of myself, but the front area, this is the greenhouse location, and then the outdoor cultivation is in the back of the property to the north, which is the darker shaded gray area, which is accessed by the driveway. There'll be no signage for the property, so there's no signage requirements. Solid waste will be handled in 2 8-yard dumpsters, and there's specific requirements by the Cannabis Control Commission that require any solid waste that is disposed of in the dumpsters must be rendered unusable prior to disposal. That'll be locked and secured and will not be accessible. The project has significant stormwater management, and the project conforms to the Mass Stormwater regulations in terms of water quality, volume, and treatment. And we're proposing a series of underground infiltration areas, rain gardens, and stormwater mitigation. We're also proposing a water quality swale between the outdoor grow facility and the wetlands, which treats nitrogen and phosphorus as regulated, depicted, and defined by the Mass Stormwater requirements. Traffic impacts for the project. There are 15 total employees per day. There's approximately 1 delivery per week. And then it's been discussed that there'd be 5 outgoing deliveries per year for the facility. So the total vehicle trips per day and a maximum day when they're actually doing outgoing products would be 20 vehicles on Quarry Road all day. So that's the vehicle trips per day. So it's an incredibly small traffic generator for this site. Water and sewer usage for a facility of this type generates 225 gallons per day of water and sewer use, domestic. There's been percolation tests performed, and we've preliminarily designed the septic system, which is shown on the plans, for 330 gallons per day. That's the minimum required by Mass Title V. So it's a really small domestic water user. And we are proposing to capture rainwater and recycle the rainwater, capture any irrigation water within the building, recycle and reuse all irrigation water, and use the rainwater from the stormwater system to use on the outdoor cultivation facility. So it's a very environmentally friendly water recycling project. So as a result, the project meets all the requirements of the zoning bylaws, and our application sort of lays out every single requirement in every section of the zoning bylaw and discusses its conformance. And other than the one waiver we're asking for, a reduction in parking, all the requirements are met. So very low municipal impact as a result of this project. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you'd like, or go through any details.
Steve, are you done?
I am, yes. Yep.
Okay. Brian, back to you. Do you have anybody else that is going to be speaking about this particular plan that was submitted?
No, I think we can just open it up to questions.
All right. Okay. Well, let's go in here. That's what I'm planning on doing. I didn't know whether you had someone else that was going to be speaking. I didn't know if you had a security chief or some other individual to participate.
No, our security company already kind of talked with the police station and got the approval of what we were proposing.
Well, I think, if the security chief doesn't here to address that, is there any way you can address that, or before we get into a question and answer period?
Yeah, you want to know about the security plan? So,
because it's been discussed in the past, okay? And, we don't need the exact details on the security plan. I mean, it's been touched on already that you're going to have a full-time security guard. That's 24/7. So I don't want to be asking questions. Do you feel comfortable?
Yeah. Do you want me to go over it quick? So each part of the facility that has marijuana inside of it will be fenced in with a 6-foot fence. There will be cameras all along the fence, and the outdoor cultivation will have cameras throughout the field. The building there's 100% of the exterior of the building has to be on cameras. 100% of the interior of the building has to have cameras. It will be a gated entrance with a security guard. You're going to need an agent badge with a card to get in through the gate and let in through a security company. The fire ambulance, and police will all have coded entry into our facility if they needed to. Along with the security guard during the summer months, when the quarry is, there's a lot of people at the quarry, we're going to have a off-duty police officer parked at our facility, just have a police presence. So, talking with the various departments, it seems to be that there has been a little bit of a nuisance there. So we figured that might just be a positive impact for the community. I know the police were kind of excited that we would do that. And then, also it would just kind of deter anyone from trying to come on the property. That's pretty much it. The security is backed up for, 60 days on servers. The state has complete access to the security footage at any time they need. The police station is also have direct access, or they'll have access to it as requested if they need it. We did propose that we would point one of our cameras from our parking lot towards the quarry. If there was ever a problem at the quarry, they could always pull up that camera and we could have it sent to them as long as it happened within the previous 60 days. I think that's about it for the security. It's just kind of the basic.
In that same vein, okay, I understand you also had a discussion with the ambulance director.
Yep. Yeah. The ambulance said, really we just have to have the right safety measures, and then they just wanted to have access to the facility. And then we came up with that we would just have a key code for them, and then everyone on the fire department and ambulance crew and police would have access to that code if needed to get in.
Okay. And did you have an opportunity to speak with the fire chief?
No, I did not yet.
You did? Okay. All right.
But the greenhouse is following like the national fire protection for greenhouses. And it is a steel building with poly walls. So it doesn't really the building itself does not pose a fire hazard. It's not like a flammable building, highly flammable building. As far as like any fuel storage, like Steve mentioned, everything's run off propane. That tank is actually buried in the ground. So it's a very low fire hazard facility.
One thing to add, Bob and Brian, is the storage. So we also will have a secured storage capability that will.
Before you go on, well, Mike, okay, fine, Mike, I'm sorry. I'm
Sorry,
sitting
boss.
way across the room, and your name is so small at this distance. I need the binoculars. Okay, sorry, Mike.
Sorry, sir. Yep. This is Mike Goodenough, and I'm with Tetrahydra, just in case anybody needs that information. We also will have secured storage for all of our cannabis, and that will be secured in a way that meets the CCC standards. And that will be actually an underground controlled system. So, I just wanted to add that, Bri.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Is that, let's see, I've covered that. That was brought up in the past. Is there anything else we need Brian to address before we start opening this up to the public? All right. Well, there you go. Okay. Board members. Okay. Starting with James. You brought it up.
Can't hear.
I can't. Yeah, we can't hear you.
Well, don't take your mask off. Just sit.
Oh, sorry, everybody.
Todd, the microphone must be at your computer or something, because Jim standing by that one isn't doing anything.
Thank you.
No, my computer is getting on a totally different system. Okay.
Bob, we can hear you fine. So if they come back to you in your area, it will be heard. So we hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go closer to Bob's computer.
Just go right up here. Stand right in front of the board.
How about now?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. No, sorry, very quick, just want to point out that we had an open meeting at the site. Okay, walk the site, so anyone who was there can, of course, report on it. I was there, Al Blake was there, and Bob Ronzio was there, and probably about, I don't know, about 15 other people.
15 or so.
Yeah, and so if anybody has any, wants to add anything on that note, they absolutely can, because it was actually quite enlightening to see. And so I have no questions. I just wanted to point that out to everyone.
Okay, so there was a site visit earlier today. What I'm gonna ask Brian to do is, Brian, do you? Okay, hang on. We'll stop. We'll suspend everything until Jesse identifies this individual.
Jesse, we can't hear you. You're gonna have to go over closer.
Yeah, we can talk about that. You can ask him afterwards. What?
Bob, can you relay the message from Jesse?
Who has a telephone number ending in 8148, please?
8148.
Please unmute yourself. You're on the telephone. There's only one person on the telephone. 617-910-8148. I need you to identify yourself, please.
Hello.
That's Abigail Austin.
Thank you.
All right, okay, so we got that taken care of. Okay, so as I started to say, Brian, you were there at the site visit. Did you want to make any comments about what took place at the site visit, or?
Nothing. There's nothing I wanted to add.
Nothing you need to add. Okay. Al, Al whispered to me that he was curious to see. I don't see a location of the well and septic, which is generally shown on the site plan in Foresight. Address that, or someone for the appropriate person.
Steve, you're muted.
Did you ask where the septic and well are proposed? Was that the question?
Correct.
Okay, I'll pull it up. The septic is located here in this location, and the well is located right here. They meet all of the town's required setbacks for septic systems and wells to every, property lines, driveways, other utilities, etc. So that is where they're located. Does that answer your question?
That's a change. The septic system is in the location it was on the plan that was submitted, the previous plan that was submitted. The well has moved significantly. The well originally was at the rear of the property, at the north end of the property, and that has now been moved closer to the road. Okay.
Yeah, it's slightly different. The septic is slightly different because we moved it over to be directly on top of the perk tests.
Right.
On the previous plan, we had moved it off a little bit and said we were going to do new perk tests, but this one uses the existing perk tests. And the well has been moved so that it meets all the setbacks and it is closer to the front of the property, yes.
Yeah. When you drew that blue arc, okay, this is what Ronnie was speaking again. You showed the septic system, okay, and you just show me I think I see the well. Is that in front of the proposed building? It's got a W on it in a circle, because it's hard to read these maps because they're small.
Yeah, the well is right there where I just drew the blue.
There it is, right there. Okay, fine.
Yep.
When you said it meets the requirements, okay, just so that you know, okay, Becket has its own well regulations that were adopted in 2017. And looking at that particular plan, it needs to be at least 30 feet back from the front property lines. And I'm assuming that that's correct.
I used the most recent Becket setbacks that were available. We just used them a month ago for another property, and those are the setbacks I used.
Yeah, but sometimes what's happened is that the well regulations in the town of Becket become more stringent than they are throughout the rest of the state. And they were adopted in 2017. And some people doing this work are not familiar with that, right? Well, they have to do a better job at basically letting people know, because this comes up a lot before the Board of Health. And Gail LaBelle, who was also on this board and served as the chair of the Board of Health, was asking me about that earlier. So I think we've covered that. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
No further questions there. Okay, Ann Crowley, do you have any questions that you would like to address before we open this up? I see you.
You're muted.
You gotta unmute yourself.
Okay, I did. I want to say that I'm sorry I couldn't be at the site visit, but I'm a little sick, and so I couldn't be there, but I did look at the maps. And I have a few questions. Basically, I looked over at again, multiple times at our standards, and we drafted, I was there when we drafted the bylaw for this, for the marijuana standards, and we had no intention of conflating the 2 acres with the 5 acres, the 2 acres for the outdoor growth and the 5 acres for an indoor growth facility. It was intended to allow somebody who lived here, a small individual person, to have a growth facility on 2 acres. It was not intended to be conflated into the 5 acres. So 2 plus 5 equals 7. And my question to you is, why did you not have your property at 7 acres and you created a property at 5.6 acres?
Can you clarify that? Because it's the outdoor cultivation is a minimum of 5 acre requirement, and then the indoor is a 2 acre requirement. So
let me check again.
We fall within the 5. We're over the 5 acre mark.
In either case, they were 2 separate standards, and it was not meant to be conflated, that you could put one inside the other. The 2 acre inside the 5 acre lot. They were meant to be separate. So my question is, how come you didn't observe that? Because you do have an indoor and an outdoor growth.
It's one operation under one license. It's the 5 acre was the minimum requirement, and so we went over the 5 acre minimum.
It doesn't, no, it's 5 plus 2. I will look it up and let you know. I don't have it right in front of me.
Yeah, I didn't see that in the bylaws. I just saw that it was 2 acres for the indoor and it was 5 acres for the outdoor. And since we were doing the outdoor, we went over 5 acres to be compliant with it.
The 2 plus 5 is 7.
Does it say it has to?
I did not see in the bylaws that they add them together if it's still one facility under one license.
It did not say that you could. I was there, and so were the other members of the planning board. And the intention was not to conflate them. As I recall, I'll ask the other members of the board to confirm that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I was at that meeting as well, and I didn't hear that come up when the bylaws were voted in.
We can't hear you again. We can't hear you again. I'm sorry.
We're saying there was no discussion about what Ed is referring to, about separating what. Or putting them together. I never right there in my head. I'll be perfectly honest. When I was there, and we weren't thinking in terms of the two things at once. I wasn't thinking of them as being separate. I wasn't thinking of them as being 5 or 7. I'm thinking of it 2 and 5.
The intent was not to conflate the two types of cultivation areas. I would that we never, ever.
One at a time, folks.
That was never discussed to our recollection.
So we was never to say that again, Al?
I said, to our recollection, it was James and myself, that was never discussed.
Yeah, we did not discuss putting the two together.
Right.
Yeah, but this is what they're doing. I'm suggesting that the size of the parcel is too small. If you're going to have an outdoor growing,
The size of the parcel is not too small. If they, if they can enlarge the building out, all right, if they wanted to, but they meet the minimum requirements for 2 acres for a let's see,
the indoor.
for an indoor facility. An indoor facility, if you look at the sidelines and the setbacks, the requirements for an outdoor facility are 100 feet, and the requirements for an indoor facility are 50 feet. Okay, so when they move this facility forward and put the indoor grow facility to the front of the property, they could easily eliminate the outdoor grow. And earlier in the day, today when we went to the site visit, okay, the question, I don't know how this question came up, but Brian addressed the issue, and Brian basically said at the time that the back of the facility, which is considered to be an outdoor grow, was not going to happen for at least 2 years. Am I quoting you correctly, Brian, when you say that?
Oh yeah, that would be correct.
All right.
Is that some agreement that there would be no outdoor growth for 2 years until?
Well,
it's just that if they eliminate the outdoor grow, then they've got the building up front, okay, which conforms to the 2 acres and the 2 acre zoning. As a matter of fact, it's 3 acres over. If you're right, Ann. I mean, we never really had a discussion, and I have, unfortunately, we never said that you couldn't put 2 on a larger site. Let's say it had been 10 acres. Okay, could you do? Would you meet the requirements as long as you fell within the CC guidelines, which is depending upon the tier that you're asking for. In this case, they're asking for tier 11, which is 100,000 square feet, which is basically 2.5 acres. Okay. So if this were a perfectly flat tabletop land and didn't have wetlands and all the other stuff in it, you could actually have on 5.5 acres, you could have 200,000 square feet of cultivation. But you're limited not by the town bylaws, but by the state. The state limits the facility to be 100,000 square feet, right? And going back to the CCC, when they originally did this, there was a site that was being proposed in the eastern part of the state, which was 1 million square feet, right? Which is 10 times the size of what we're talking about right now for 100,000 square feet. That was never approved, and no one is going to go there until the CCC re-rates their guidance. The guidance is whether it's indoors or outdoors, you're limited to 100,000 square feet. If you want to do 100,000 square feet and put it in one building and make it an indoor grow, then you can do that. Okay. If you want to do 100,000 square feet, you're doing an outdoor grow, then you have to have at least 5 acres. So, that's a valid question, and it's something that the board is going to have to discuss, when they decide to approve or disapprove this permit. Thank you.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that because it's a sticking point for me. So that would be one.
But it gets to this issue, and it just came to me as I was discussing this with everybody right now. Someone has written letters saying that this site was 7.7 acres. Okay, and I can honestly tell you, It is not 7.7 acres. It never was 7.7 acres, okay? It is a total of five, you heard Steve Mack run off the numbers, 5 point whatever.
673, I think, or 637.
Yeah, 5.637.
That's the actual size of the lot. But the issue that Ann raised is a valid point. So,
Yeah.
anything else? Something you want to ask?
Are you referring to me, Bob?
Yes, it's you.
Okay.
Had the floor. You
Okay. I have the floor. All righty. The second issue is the odor measurement. I would happen to come across a very interesting article in the New York Times. Let me get the, it's New York Times, January 18th, 2022, page D as in dog 8. And the article talks about a company called, let me get the name. Saint Croix, Croix, Sensory Inc. at 1150 Stillwater Boulevard North in Stillwater, Minnesota, 55082. I'll give you the website, www.5senses, one word, 5senses, FIVESENSES.com. And they have mechanisms, something called a nasal range field I'll get it right, olfactometer device for an instant reading of odors. And they are using that in various situations because they have found, and not just them, but there has been research for the negative impacts of odors on health of people who are smelling odors that they find offensive. So I'm suggesting that rather than wait for 5 people to make complaints to the town board over a period of, I'm not sure whether it's a week or 2, and then trying to, as you say that you would do, mitigate any problems, that you or any other facility in our town that could create odors, dust, like that, should employ these people, at least look into having that as part of your proposal to protect nearby residents from odor mitigation. And I know that you have been trying very hard to put up trees in the front and in the back, but I think this would be a very simple way to solve the problem, to actually measure the odor, have a standard, and measure it immediately to prevent any problems for nearby neighbors. So I hope you take that under advisement.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you bring that up. That same device you're talking about, we actually are, it's in our host agreement that we're going to order some, and we're actually ordering, I believe, 4, and we're keeping 2, and we're donating 2 to the town. It's the exact same system that you just talked about.
So
it's actually the same manufacturer too.
So would you be willing then to modify the agreement with the town, the host agreement?
That's not up to me. That would be easier.
Both of you, okay, we're not going to have this discussion back and forth, okay?
Okay.
That agreement between the town, and you can address that with the select board if you wish, okay? That's not part of this special program.
Okay. All right, but I think I'm glad. I'm just letting you know.
Ann Crowd has the floor, so we'll let her finish, okay? Thank you.
I'm glad to see that Brian is trying to be a good neighbor. I read the interview that you made that was in the newspaper, The Eagle, and you mentioned that term quite often. So I appreciate that, because my definition of being a good neighbor is not to diminish the neighbor near you in order to improve yourself, not diminish them in either quality of life or value of their property. So it seems that you seem to agree with that when you said that you would be a good neighbor. So I thank you for that. Let's
Thank
see
you.
if there's anything else. No, I think that's it. Yeah, and I'm still looking at some other issues that we still need to discuss as far as the distance from the property you're building from the property next door, the quarry, which is really basically a historic location as well as something environmental, that preservation of the environment. And I think that's a factor that I hope you take into consideration. And I think that's about it for now.
Yeah, and actually part of our positive impact statement with the town is each one of our employees will be doing, 5 hours community service every month. And part of that would be, if it's picking up garbage on the side of the road or helping clean the quarry or whatnot. That is part of our impact statement. That is something our employees will be doing. And then also, goes on at the quarry in the summertime. That's, why we implemented the police presence there, just to mitigate any problems that were arising from the town.
Oh, that sounds...
Or arising from the town.
Okay, that's another good point. One last thing, you are planting new trees across the front, is that correct?
Yeah, just 6 to make it a more aesthetic.
Are they going to be full-grown trees and very wide so you cannot see through to the building?
Oh, you won't be able to see. You'll have a fence that has a screen on it, so that will be blocking the majority of the building.
So the screen would prevent anybody seeing the building, is what you're saying?
They would see. They would see. Yeah, they would see the roof of the building, but that's about it. You wouldn't be able to see anything with inside the building.
Okay, that's it for now. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ann. Gail, all right. You're the next person up on from the board. Then we'll open it up to the public. Ann, I'm sorry, Gail, are you ready?
I am, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Brian. I am your neighbor. Hello. Been on the planning board for 20 years and the Board of Health. So I just want you aware of that. Have 11 grandchildren and I live up on Quarry Road. Okay. So one of the questions I have for you is the Form A that was done to the property. Are you leasing the property from these people?
Yes.
So they are in Chapter 61 and you're leasing the property. So there's not very many taxes paid on this property. And taxes should be paid up front before any land. I think that's in the bylaws, but we can discuss that later, Bob. Fire protection, that's another little problem. I know you've discussed things with fire department. Unfortunately, the house triangular to the quarry or across from actually where you're going to be is burnt to the ground as of last week. Did you know that? So I really, really myself feel that fire protection is a very important necessity up here, okay? Because I really would like to keep my home with 11 grandchildren. Just want you aware of that, being a neighbor.
Oh, completely agree.
Thank you, sir. And as far as employing some of the people from the town, will you be doing that also? I didn't see that in the host agreement, sir.
Yes, we would employ as many possible people from Becket as we could.
As many? That doesn't say 50%, 20%. I'd like to see at least 50% of the people from this town work up there so they're knowledgeable about the town and they live in this town.
I would love to see over 75%, if not 100% of Becket locals. I'm just saying, if for some reason there's not that many applicants from Becket, we are going to have to bring employees from other towns. But yes, I would love to see over 50% Becket residents.
And I wish you good luck in all your endeavors, but I think some things have to be gone through first. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Lerner, is he on the screen? Not, okay. So that gets back to me. So I'm gonna defer. I'm not gonna ask you any further questions at this point in time. What I would like to do is open this up to the public and see what questions they may have. But before I do that, I did receive a letter or an email today from an attorney. His name happens All right. I gotta get this. Mitch Greenwald, and I believe he's here tonight. Mitch, are you there? Hello?
I'm here.
Okay, are you muted or you're unmuted now? Okay, that's good. All right, so in your discussion earlier today, you said you represent some clients and that you would want to aggregate or speak for an extended period of time. Whoops, excuse me.
Yes, we appreciate the possibility that we could do that. I represent almost 40 clients. And of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, at least 17 have said they're not going to speak. So if you were allowing 3 minutes, that would be 51 minutes. But don't worry, I don't expect to speak that long, but I would like to be able to speak for 5 to 10 minutes just to review the points I made in the letter. If it's agreeable to you.
All I want from you is a certified list, okay, of the individuals that you are speaking for, okay, because I don't want to have to deal with them later on if they decide to come up. So I want a list of the names, okay, of all of the individuals that you have just talked about. Okay?
All right, shall I read you the names?
Hold on, Jesse will take it down, all right?
I'm having trouble hearing you, Mr. Chairman.
Fine, okay. As I told you earlier, I've got a really loud voice, okay? And so you shouldn't hear me. You shouldn't have a problem. I know I have the screen up, but that's because I was checking the bylaw and some of the other things. So I can come out here and I can talk to you. Can you hear me now?
I hear you better, yeah.
All right, fine, thank you. Okay, so if you can start with the list and we'll just go ahead. Give me a name.
All right, I'll read all the names, but I won't use them all. Barbara Mandler, these are the people that are not going to speak. Barbara Mandler, Harold Ware, Jeanette Katz, Jeremy Lichtman.
Oh, hang on, wait till we find Jeanette. Okay, go ahead, next name.
I'm sorry.
Jeremy?
More names? Jeremy Lichtman.
Jeanette. Who's after Jeanette?
I can't.
Jeremy, we got Jeremy. Go ahead.
All right. So, first of all, can I ask Mr. Chairman, just so I know how to speak about this letter, have you distributed copies to the other members of the planning board?
Yes, everyone on the board has received a copy of your letter.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, this proposal, as was indicated earlier, has changed quite a bit.
Haven't finished the name. You haven't finished the name.
You said there was 17.
You said there was 17. We got 5.
Are you saying you can't hear me?
No, I'm saying.
No, Jay, I'll do it. Look, we got, you want. All right. Jay was the person you gave me. So how many people has he given you so far?
Oh, I went down, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I gave you 5 names.
5, that's it. You said
there's more. I have more. I'll give you the rest.
Fine, go ahead.
Larissa Spitalnik, Lori Friedman.
Lori, hold on. Lori Friedman.
Lawrence Abrams.
Got him.
Leanne Ellis.
Got her.
Louis Bernstein.
Not on this list. Write them down. Lawrence. Louis Bernstein. LOUIS.
Yes. Mark Pillinger.
We got him. Okay, hang on. Got him. Go.
Michelle Cohen.
Got her.
Paul Albee.
Great. Paul's right there.
Robert Schwartz.
Robert Schwartz.
Yep.
Hang on, we gotta find him. Robert Schwartz. He's not on the list. Okay, fine. We're writing his name down. Go ahead. Yes, keep going.
Robin Walkoff.
Not on the list. Okay, next.
Yeah, that'll do it for now. There may be others, but I won't use that many people.
Well, most people cannot speak, okay, once you've had a chance to speak. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Our first problem is, and it may go away if the matter gets continued tonight, that the recent plans, which provide a lot of additional detail and some changes, were only submitted very recently. The last substantive hearing, I believe, was in August. And I believe at that time it was continued to an uncertain date. If there was another continuance after that, I'm not familiar with it. But we believe that the matter should have been re-advertised and new notice resent to the abutters to allow everyone the opportunity for public input that's inherent in the public hearing process. Obviously, the people here knew about it, but there may be many people who didn't know about it. And I don't think that's the way it's supposed to work. Again, if the matter gets continued tonight for a period of time, that issue will go away, assuming that there's proper publicity of any continued hearing date. Now, the other thing is it's supposed to go to the other boards, and I knew it initially did, but I don't know that this new information has gone to the other boards. I'm referring to the requirement that board members are familiar with. The special permit applications, you submit it to other boards and officials for comment. Didn't go there. And also, by the way, I don't want to dwell on it now, but it's our position that under the bylaw, site plan review for all matters not accepting cannabis facilities is to be done by the ZBA. I think the bylaw is very clear about that. Moving on, Anne made a point that we believe is absolutely correct and absolutely bars the approval of this project, which has to do with the 2-acre and 5-acre. There's no question that under the bylaws of the town, the 2-acre and the 5-acre are not for the same use. Some towns say you can have 2 principal uses on the same lot. This town does not. And these are 2 different uses. It's clear from the way the bylaw is written. The fact that it may be a single license at the CCC is irrelevant. That's a separate regulatory body with its own rules. The applicant is required to satisfy, and it's just as important, and the CCC recognizes this, the primacy of local control. They're required to satisfy the zoning requirements of the town. One of the zoning requirements of the town is 2 acres plus 5 acres. This lot doesn't meet that. And that in itself should prevent the approval of this plan as presently constituted. Some other issues that have been raised. Oh, and also someone asked about the lease. There is supposed to be evidence of control of the site, meaning evidence that the applicant has the right to use the site. We know about the Form A, where the piece was cut out and given to another corporation called Happy Medium. But we see no lease between Happy Medium and Tetrahydra or other evidence of control. Nothing in the packet. That's an application requirement. That's supposed to happen at the time of the application. It's not there. Once again, a killer. All right, let's move on to odor. I thought, well, let me tell you our view of the odor issue, and then I'll speak to the something that was said earlier. The bylaw requires that any emissions that leave the property and for all purposes, including federal and state law about air quality, emissions include odor. The bylaw says, this is your own bylaw, that it be subject to immediate cleanup and correction. The applicant has not proposed a plan for this. Instead, the applicant and possibly the chair seem to be relying on the host community agreement. But the host community agreement does not even though it's a contract between the applicant and the town, it doesn't override the zoning. The select board in entering into that contract don't have the power to override the zoning. The scheme that is set out in that is the most permissive I've ever seen. And I know a fair amount about marijuana bylaws in different towns. I've drafted some and I've litigated some, and I have never seen one that says you've got to have 5 complaints within 2 weeks from 5 separate households in order to proceed in terms of doing something with the applicant. And even then, all that happens is the applicant has to come in for a chat. What happens after that? Who knows? That's not a good scheme. I don't know why the select board adopted that scheme, but I do know that it's not consistent with the zoning. And if that's the only odor control scheme, the only enforcement scheme, this plan can't be approved. Moving on to techniques, the applicants proposed, only in its latest submission, less than 2 weeks ago, a certain set of measures for the indoor facility and another set of measures for the outdoor facility to be used, each involving different chemicals. Literature is available for these chemicals, and more important, case studies are available for these chemicals. I think before approving any odor control plan, leaving aside the gaping problems with the enforcement scheme that I mentioned a moment ago, but we ought to find out, do these schemes actually work? Not might they work, or we think it'll work, or it'll probably work. Have they been tested? Have they been used elsewhere? Or is Becket going to be a guinea pig of a town? Not only do we want to know if they've been used elsewhere, but what experience does the applicant have controlling odor in this type of facility? The applicant and others who might be responsible for it. We don't know any of that. We're hoping that more evidence is presented on that. Some towns choose to engage odor consultants about this. Most towns don't like to take the word of the applicant on such an important measure. Because that's the kind of thing, once you've built it, you're not going to order that it be torn down. It's got to be dealt with up front. And we've got to know if it's going to work from people who know through facts, science, not just guesses, that it's going to work. We have no evidence like that at all. We're working on getting some evidence, but we shouldn't be the ones who have to spend the money on this. We've seen no evidence proposed by the applicant supporting this. None. Moving on to wetlands. We did submit, Mr. Chairman, did you receive the wetlands report that we submitted?
Yes, we did.
All right. Has that been distributed also?
And to all board members. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. This is just a preliminary report done by a wetland specialist who's extremely knowledgeable and highly respected, Emily Stockman. She sees all kinds of problems on the site. Not only buffer zone problems, as my friend Steve pointed out, but also some work being done in bordering vegetative wetlands, which is a higher level of problem. Sometimes things can't be approved when there's this work needing to be done. Sometimes there's measures that can be taken to address it. And of course, you may be thinking that's a problem for the Conservation Commission, and it's certainly within their purview, and they're the ones that do the detail on this. But I want to suggest to you that under your own bylaw, you're required to look as part of consideration of the special permit at site design and development related impacts, section 6875 and 6884, and at the impacts of the project on the natural environment, section 932. That's your responsibility, as it's the responsibility of every board in town to consider environmental issues, but you have a particular responsibility when you're making special permit decisions. Moving on, parking requirements. It was stated that waivers are going to be sought. What? Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but what authority is there for waivers of that requirement? Maybe the ZBA has that authority, maybe not, but I don't see that the planning board has it. The quarry, very important. An important resource for Becket as time goes on, a tourist attraction, received increasing attention in recent years, not only from adults, but from kids. Organized groups of kids go to the quarry. This is documented through the Becket Land Trust, and it's going to be continued by the trustees of reservations that are taking it over. The bylaw says that you can't have a marijuana facility, a cannabis facility, within 500 feet, border to border, not building to building, border to border, to a facility where organized youth activities occur. We believe that the quarry is such a facility, and it's clear that border to border, it's less than 500 feet. We think that means that the cannabis facility is prohibited in the presently proposed location. Stormwater management, very complex. I don't claim to understand it. Emily Stockman spoke to it. Others have spoken to it and may speak later tonight. You know more about it than I do. But we need some outside analysis on that, both about whether the plan works on paper and whether the applicant has the resources to deal with the plan. Visual impact, it seems to be getting presented that the property is going to be not visible from the street or the quarry preserve. I think the documents that have been presented don't really show that. Others may speak about that. So I'll stop here except to say that this board has some discretion on special permits, and it also has some areas where it doesn't have discretion. It doesn't have the discretion to grant a permit over mandatory requirements, of which I've recited several. I know this board is respected for following rules and stating that rules have to be followed. These are rules that need to be followed carefully, and we hope that they are. And I hope that you'll pay careful attention to some of the other people that are going to speak tonight on these issues. Thanks for your attention. And thanks for your allowing me to speak at this length.
Thank you very much. And, we're very short and concise, and basically, following along your report that you had sent to us, and you picked up on all of the points. What I would like to do now is, because there are a lot of other people that would like to speak. So let's see. Well, how are we going to yes, Michael Lavery? Lavery, okay. Michael is here. Okay, Michael happens to be on the select board, and he may be able to address some of the issues that Mitch brought up a few minutes ago. Michael?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Michael Lavery, 223 Silverleaf Drive. I did want to address both the speaker and the odor control that Ann brought up. We did put that into the host community agreement due to various residents and homeowners in the Quarry Road area location who wanted some type of odor mitigation. We did the best research that we could at the time and met with both attorneys from the representative, marijuana grow farm, and our own town council. So this is a machine that has been used in other states, Colorado, namely, and California. And when we just had the 5 residents coming forward, it didn't seem like enough. So that was why we put the odor control and the devices. We are going to have a baseline odor level created before there's any plant in the ground or in a grow facility. So this is something we've taken seriously, and it was under legal advisement. We do think it will stand up in court, and that's why it's in our host community agreement. That's the best information that we had at the time. In regards to Mr. Feinberg's or Greenwald's statements that we shouldn't have agreed to that or been allowed to, that's not what our attorney said. So I think as a selectman, and we voted for it unanimously. So that's all I'll say about that. Speaking as a resident and a town citizen, I am in favor of the grow farm. I don't know all of the details of all of Mitch Greenwald's statements. We'll have to review those individually, but when I ran for office, I ran under the ticket that I'd get a grow farm in the town of Becket, and it hasn't happened yet in the 5 years that I've been serving here. I hope that we do get one. I think that it fits in with our rural farming type community. I think that the Commonwealth has said that marijuana should be legal, and they have to grow it somewhere, and there's plenty of wide open space in the town of Becket. So thank you. Mr. Chair, back to you.
Great. Michael, you said you were going to address something that Ann said. I don't know whether you skipped over that or.
Yeah, the odor control. I think the.
But the odor control. Okay, fine. That's addressed.
Yeah.
We can move on. Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
All right. Do we have any other non-officials that are on the board? Because I know that the Conservation Commission indicated today that they might have somebody in attendance, and I'm just checking. I don't know. You didn't see anybody on the. Okay, so there's nobody from the Conservation Commission. There any other potential?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, could you tell them?
Just ask if,
Mr. Schaefer, is there a Mr. Schaefer out there?
Bob, this is Mike Goodenough. Can I address some of those concerns, or do you want to wait to the end? How would you like to do that?
Why don't we wait? I want to try and get,
Go ahead. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I want to see what we can.
Hi. Hi, I'm Jim Schaefer. I am a conservation commissioner. And I'm here to talk about other issues than wetlands protection.
All right, okay, so, okay, we can let you talk about those other issues. Because you're a town official, I thought you might be speaking on the behalf of the board. I know that, you can't speak for the board, but you were there today, and I know that the chairman of the commission was there, as well as the conservation agent.
I cannot speak on anything that the commission may do.
Right. Not
seen a submittal yet, and when we do, then we'll review it.
Okay, fine. All right. So is there anybody else, any other town official that is representing a group or party? No. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, why don't you? Fine. You got his hand raised there?
David Celine, please.
Unmute yourself.
Hold on. Okay. Can you hear me?
Okay, good.
Okay. Becket Planning Board members, thank you for this opportunity to comment. I've submitted written correspondence now on 3 occasions, and I ask that those continue to be considered. I represent the Killeen Family Realty Trust that owns land to the north and the east of the subject parcel. We do not oppose the use of this property as a marijuana grow facility, but we do oppose the approval of a site plan that does not meet the town's requirements for special permit approval, especially if the approval could jeopardize the character of Beckett's natural environment. My background includes a degree in landscape architecture and regional planning and 40 years of professional experience in planning and development. The applicant has now provided a much more detailed set of plans that helps all of us understand better the character of the chosen site where this development is to occur. And it's a challenged site.
Yeah.
It's one that's characterized by the presence of wetlands, nearby streams, hills, and steep slopes on the property itself. The proposed development is a fairly aggressive one. I agree with the comments of Michael Lavery that it's good to see the town pursuing agricultural uses, but the character of this use is not so agricultural. The greenhouse building itself is approximately 30,000 square feet in size, which is similar in footprint to a Barnes & Noble bookstore. The outdoor grow area is almost the same size. Our concern is that the existing site is not capable of handling this level of development, and there are a number of features that are clear in the current application that demonstrate why. Number one, the plan does not provide enough parking spaces on site and needs a waiver of those parking spaces. I agree with the attorney. I believe those waivers should come from the Zoning Board of Appeals and not from the Planning Board. Number two, even if a waiver was granted, the current site plan includes only 8 of the parking spaces they're proposing on the property itself. An additional 11 parking spaces are proposed on the neighboring Metcalf property. Number three, much of the use is proposed within wetland buffers, and there are specific crossings that do require approval of the Conservation Commission, as has been noted. Number four, there is a very sophisticated stormwater management system proposed for this use, and it's accompanied by a 19-page operation and maintenance plan that's part of the stormwater report. I wonder if the applicants have demonstrated their ability to implement this plan. If not, stormwater runoff will cause problems for neighboring properties like ours. There are still too many unanswered questions from our standpoint. We respectfully request that the board deny the current application without prejudice. Let the applicant work with the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Conservation Commission to refine the plan. They could then come back to you with a more complete and feasible plan. Thank you for considering our comments in your deliberations.
Thank you, sir. All right. Next, who's up next? Arthur Callaghan? Callaghan, all right. Arthur, are you there?
I am here. I want to start with a fundamental point about this application. It was first filed several months ago. It contained a representation that the building would not be seen from the street. And it said that the building would be placed way back on the property. You've now gotten an application filed, a revision of the application filed approximately 2 weeks before this hearing. Suddenly the building is 50 feet from the street. It plainly is visible. I understood what was said. Only the roof is visible. The reality is, until you see what it's going to look like from the street, until someone gives you a representation of the building, I don't see how you can possibly approve this project. You don't know what effect it's going to have in the neighborhood. You don't know what effect light mitigation is going to be. You don't know what's going to be seen from the street or from the land across the street, the quarry reservation. This is just, they've had a long time to give you a picture that you can analyze, a long time to give you a plan, and they've yet to been able to do it. They're still asking you to buy a pig in the poke. There's going to be something that can be visible from the street, and you're supposed to say, okay, we don't have to see it, we'll just approve it. I'm sorry, too little, too late. Thank you.
James, can you tell me, I think some of the names are so small. Barbara Walkholder, are you ready to speak?
Yes, I can say my few words, and just basically going to react to odor and to noise. I don't expect these questions to be answered right now. I am just putting them out there. I want them to be on record, and just detailing how many details have not been addressed. I had something written about the inside odor mitigation, and now I have come to find out that it's a closed loop system, which is, I think, a change from the most recent applicant's notes or his plans. So I don't even know what it is right now. It's just another flip. And I think they are reacting to the Beckett's HCA that says you need to have a closed system. So I don't know what the mitigation process would be there, what the size of the equipment is. Is it on the roof or the ground? Is it all inside? Is this EcoStore product still going to be worked with? Where's the equipment coming from? Are they still using carbon filters? What's the mesh size? The sound decibels from this equipment? What kind of service agreement, etc. Regarding the outdoors, what's written down was they planned on using a company called Canna Buster. I don't know, is EcoSword being used here also? If not, what's the product being pressurized within the machinery? Is it iodine based? As is Fodco, which is another firm. If so, if it's iodine based, is that an air quality issue? The EPA regulates air pollutants. Is iodine one of them? This company, the piece of equipment they would use, this Fodco, is called a fog cannon. So just to give you an idea of what the size of this thing is, it weighs 225 pounds and has to be transported outdoors via a 3-wheel trailer. It uses a 1400 PSI high pressure pump. I have no idea what kind of noise that comes from that. Is it used 24 hours a day? And to be effective, you need to have it set up prior to planting. Washington and Oregon mandate that an odor control system be in place before a permit is even granted. And where is the schematic of this odor mitigation system? And it was cited before, but who among Tetra's group knows anything about odor mitigation? They have a hemp farm. What's happened there with the odor? One thing that I did read actually today, in late November 21, Science News reported that a terpene research firm called Abstracts, terpene is the chemical that supposedly is the source of the odor. And all of these mitigation systems are planned against terpenes. But now research that was done by Abstracts, Iowa State, and Bayer Scientific are now saying that it is their sulfur compounds are the cause of the skunky smell, not the terpenes. So as was mentioned, this technology does move on, but I don't know whether the EcoSorb will be efficacious against sulfur. I don't know who does. In terms of the nasal ranger, which it's not just buying this thing, you need to have a professional trainer train people on how to use it. And that costs money. And that has to be done before using this piece of equipment. Okay, next, I know cannabis varieties are malodorous, but some are more than others. I don't know what the variety is that they're trying to use here. And in terms of sound, I expect that they will stay within the 60 decibels that they committed to a while ago, but I don't know whether this was on written and signed. There are apps for Android and for the Apple phones to measure the decibels, and there should be a reporting system that has to be set up and monitored by the applicant and by the town of Becket. So there are many, many more issues. This is just under 2 categories. And I think that they need to do a lot more work and to come back finally with detail. That's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, James, next up on the screen.
Thank you. I guess what I see in the, at least in the municipal impact report, it identifies section 9.4.3.1 in the bylaw, in the planning board bylaws, that says the site plan shall include, among other things, building elevations. Building elevations would go a long way to answer how this facility will look from the street. You might need 2, one of the building and then one of the fence in front of the building. I gotta believe this is gonna be something like 20 feet tall. Irrigation water usage. We hear that the system is going to recycle and reuse as much water as they can. But there is nowhere in there how much is needed. And then how much might come from the recycling and reuse versus out of an irrigation well. There are no numbers there. My last item is going to continue about the odor measurements or odor control. I'm familiar with taste and odor from the drinking water industry. And one of the things that you learn is that there's a very wide range in people's ability to taste and smell. And you're not looking for the average. You're looking for the more sensitive receptors. And those are the people who are going to notice. And I think you need to find some of those people to work as part of the odor sensing crew. And also the odor control measurement, your nose is very sensitive, much more sensitive than any equipment that's been developed to date. So I think you'd be much better off finding people who are sensitive for this odor. Also, I agree with some of the previous speakers about getting evidence for odor control. in my career as an engineer, it's great to believe what the manufacturers are telling you, but get some other data, case histories, on-site usage, talk to other people who have used it, and get a better assessment of how it really works. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, sir. All right, to James, I'm going to ask you again. Pick the next person.
Do you want to go with?
I'll do Michael. Michael can answer these things. Not now. I want to get over. Lori?
Thank you. I'd like to speak to just a few points, and I won't take much time because I think it has been wonderfully, effectively laid out by some of the other speakers. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association at Indian Lakes, and I am speaking as a neighbor and as a leader of my community. I don't stand for or against a pot farm. I don't stand for or against these particular applicants. I stand more in Ann's corner, where I'm concerned about quality of life and value of property. That's my job. That's your job. And I have some concerns, and I believe that until these concerns are addressed, the board really can't in good conscience approve this. For example, we learned only this week that there's a fence going up in front of this building that's now at the front of the property. What does that look like when you're taking a walk down Quarry Road? I think that impacts the visual of our neighborhood. I think now we will have a gated, highly secured, lighted 24 hours a day with 1,000-gallon propane tank, septic tank, and well sunk into what is known to be now wetlands with a stream running through it. My concerns are for the quality of our lives here and the flora and fauna that make up that quality of life. I'll let the lawyers and the engineers and the conservationists hash out exactly what this means. But if we're really here to protect the quality of life and the value of property, as these people are saying they will be good neighbors, we need to nail down the facts. We need to have the facts included in these agreements. And I don't think we have enough. I don't think you have enough at this time to make that kind of commitment for our community. So I thank you for taking these comments into consideration as you deliberate. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lori. All right, next, James.
John Lambert.
John Lambert? Sir.
It's a lead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Beverly? All right, my fault. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I agree with the concerns that have been stated already and would like to discuss an additional concern. I am Beverly Lambert. 51 years ago, my husband and I purchased our land at 181 Quarry Road because we wanted to raise our family in the quiet, clean, and environmentally pleasing neighborhood of Quarry Road. So we have been full-time residents for 51 years. The proposal by Tetrahydra is not in keeping with the character of our neighborhood. In my opinion, some of the town bylaws have been overlooked in reviewing the application of Tetrahydra, specifically under section 9.4.5, which states, protection of unique or important natural, historic, or scenic features, our historic quarry. More than 20 years ago, our neighborhood fought a commercial enterprise from establishing at the quarry. At that time, as today, we were fighting to preserve the history and the natural setting of the quarry. The Becket Land Trust was the result of our efforts. The trust was managed by a hardworking group of volunteers until the popularity of this beautiful spot became too difficult for volunteers to manage. Recently, the trustees of the reservation, which oversees 123 properties, and is Massachusetts' largest conservation and preservation organization, acquired this land. In a winter bulletin published by the trustees, the acting CEO announced that they were in the process of assessing the quarry and they were excited to officially open our historic quarry in the spring. They have already posted a position seeking a ranger to be employed at the quarry throughout the summer. Our quarry is now in the prestigious company of such historic greats as Naumkeag, Monument Mountain, Bartholomew's Cobble, and Notchview. Now that we are under the auspices of the trustees known for preserving natural and historic treasures, will Becket be regarded with these prestigious properties, or will we be known as the Pot Farm? The character of our neighborhood will be drastically changed if the special permit is granted for Tetrahydra's commercial proposal. It is not in keeping with the trustees' mission, and it will be detrimental to the clean air, clear skies, and bucolic neighborhood in which my neighbors and I have chosen to live. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Right, Dan, give me another name. Yes, Tess, I can read Tess because she doesn't have a picture up there. Thank you, Tess. You may
Thank you.
address the board.
Thank you to the board to allow me to speak. My name is Tess Lundberg. I live on Valley View Road in Becket. I am a full-time, year-round resident of Becket, a taxpayer, and a registered voter in this town. I agree with a lot of the concerns that have already been addressed by people in this meeting. And I also would like to particularly talk about the water consumption that this facility will be using. They have presented us with no real data about the amount of water that they're going to be drawing out of the aquifer and how that will impact our neighbors' wells and the aquifer in general. The Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission on April 4th, 2019, produced a document, The Guidance of Best Management Practices on Water Use, in which they stated that for an outdoor grow, and this is just for an outdoor grow, it's an average of 6 gallons a day per plant. Now, 6 gallons a day on a 2-acre lot per plant is going to amount to a lot of water that's being taken out of the ground. The applicant is telling us they're going to recycle water, they're going to use rainwater. I really would like to see some hard and detailed information about how much water is going to be used and what's going to be taken out of the ground that isn't going to be available to the neighboring wells. My second concern here is, if this board is not going to allow the public to attend meetings, I respectfully ask that you do your best to resolve the audio issues that have made it extremely difficult for us to hear what is being said in the meeting room by the board members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beth. Okay, we have
Bob, can I just say something? It's the water usage, considering if we did not recycle any water, is the equal to 4.5
one more person before you jump in, Brian, okay? Then you can jump in, okay? David.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm David Edel at 269 Skyline Ridge Road, and I'm the head of the Skyline Ridge Property Owners Association, and 3 of us are of the members of the board are on tonight, representing the 9 full-time residents at Skyline Ridge, and we are the neighborhood in the community that is most potentially affected because our properties abut the Metcalf property, and we're closest, therefore, and have the greatest potential impact or are impacted. I want to thank all of the prior speakers and for all of the research and presentations they've done, and to join them in opposition to this at this point. I don't think we have enough information to move forward. We don't believe that we have the protections necessary in order to deal with worst case situations as they arise once this begins and this moves forward. And I would add the one issue that for Skyline Ridge particularly, and I've raised this in the past, I believe we still have a potential security issue as Skyline Ridge abuts the property, and therefore there's the potential for people wanting to access the property from our neighborhood, and therefore getting more traffic and perhaps more danger in the neighborhood. So thank you for listening. You have on record all of the written reports and concerns from all of the neighbors in Skyline Ridge now, all of whom have raised all of these similar issues, primarily about the impact of quality of life and property value as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, I think now it looks like Robert Ellery just spoke. He's up there twice, right? We only got one. Oh, you haven't already? Okay, fine. All right, fine. Then let's go to Robert, okay? Because we seem to be getting more hands all of a sudden popping up. But Robert, are you there?
Yes, I am. I really just didn't want to raise my hand unless everything wasn't covered. I just do want to just mention a couple things really quick. I live on 74 Andrews Road. I think I have to say that. What my concern is really the detrimental effect on the character of the neighborhood. I also read the plans that said there was a second well, and I didn't see anything mentioned about the second well. And I think a second well would be very needed for the requirements of the water. Even an indoor grow requires about 2.5 to 2.8 gallons per day per plant. So yeah, what effect will that have on our aquifer? Also, the effluent storage, they talked about that, but I didn't see what size the tank was, where it would be, and how often it would require pumping. And then what would happen if it overflowed and what would be in there, the chemicals that would be in there. Also, just even within this meeting, there's some different discussions that I heard. Originally it was going to be 13 trees planted out front to really screen the area. Then we later heard that there was 6. And the only reason I know that is I write a lot of notes as we go. And I think that's really it. I oppose it because of what the character of the neighborhood and how the effect of the lighting will be. Also, in our site review today, we talked about how the police were happy that for security reasons, the facility would be moved to the front of the property. So that does mean that there is a concern for security in the neighborhood. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Dexter? Destin, go ahead. Hello, sir. You there?
Hi. Yeah, hi. I'm Destin Heilman. I'm at 351 Bonnie Rigg. I'm a professor of chemistry and biochemistry. I wanted to first echo what others have said about the lack of details in odor mitigation, particularly with the outdoor grow, particularly with terpenes and how those are going to be mitigated. I know there was a lot of talk in previous proposals about break walls with trees and mitigation, movement of air, things like that. I haven't heard a lot about that this time, but I think the lack of detail for the indoor as well as the outdoor odor mitigation is alarming. I wanted to talk about, again, about the character of the area. One of the main reasons I have this place in Becket is because it is natural, it's pristine, it has incredible dark skies. I do a lot of astronomy. I do a lot of astronomy outreach. I also do a lot of talks everywhere about protecting nature from light pollution. I am very concerned about the degree of light pollution that this can impact on the immediate area, especially given that this is going to be 24/7 lighting. I have not had a chance to review this new proposal as of 2 weeks, but I don't know what kind of details are there with respect to the type of Kelvin rating on the lights being used, the correlated color temperature of the lights, the wattage used of the lights, the brightness, the amount of lumens it's going to cast. They have to be fully shielded and cast down, but depending on the surface area and what they're being cast on, the amount of glare and light scatter can be tremendous. In an area that's this dark, that kind of lighting 24 hours a day is de facto going to have a dramatic impact on the environment. In 2016, the American Medical Association gave landmark guidance for how light pollution not only impacts insect species and animals, but also humans, particularly blue light found in LEDs. I wonder if any of that is being taken into account. I haven't really heard or seen anything. Lastly, I'm very familiar with the trustees of reservations. I have worked with them for many years doing programming on several of their sites, including children's programming. I have run nature outreach programs as well as astronomy programs for them. And I have a great deal of concern with the potential breach of bylaws that speak to not having children's programming going on within 500 feet of a marijuana growth facility. I would find it absolutely shocking if the trustees of reservations did not have, as they do on the vast majority of their properties, a plan for children's programming. This is a historical site. It is a magnificent site to be run by the trustees. And I see that as a potential fatal flaw in this entire plan. So I hope these things get addressed. Thanks for the time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we have one more individual, and then we'll go to Mike. Issues. Who is it? All right, sir. Address the board.
Who is this?
Hello, John, unmute yourself.
I am unmuted. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Fred Braun. My questions relate to financial.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, okay? I can't read the name.
John Verity.
Yeah, John Verity. Okay, you had your hand up.
Hello.
All right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'd like to go through a few things, and I hope the board, pertaining to the board, but Tetra will have to answer these. On the drawings, you show a building. Now you're saying a greenhouse. You do know that those are two completely different buildings. Your original drawing showed a greenhouse and a head house. The head house, as you know, handles administration and areas like that. We don't know what square footage you're going to use for bathrooms and break rooms and office space. You didn't break it out, okay? Plus, I've built greenhouses, large greenhouses, and to sit there and say that you're only going to see the top of the roof, no. Average greenhouse that we used to do was 14 to 15 feet to the peak. Take a 6-foot fence, you can do the math how much is going to be exposed. To give you an idea how much is going to be on the road, if you were to line up 4 1,200 square foot ranch homes alongside of each other, 4 of them, that's what you'd be looking at from the road. To give you an idea how big the building is, it would be 26 1,200 square foot ranches homes stacked alongside of each other. All right. So I'd also like to say that in this drawing, you failed to eliminate all the buffer zone markings. You don't show it going through the septic system, which it does. You don't show it going through the building like it does. And you don't show it going through the grow area like it does. A failure to show these. It confuses the normal person because if they don't see it, they don't think of it. Okay. Now you have a large storage, drainage, leaching system for this facility. I'd like to know, because we know what the ground is. It's granite. It's a quarry area. Has any study been done where you're going to put a 10,000 tank, and have you done any thermal reading saying, yes, we can go down 8 feet, or no, we're going to hit granite? You're at leaching fields. All right, well, you go on a leaching field, and some of them are offside the property next door. Has any ground or soil study been done to be able to handle 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 gallons of water when it's not raining or when it's being distributed?
Not on the property.
The study it wasn't done correctly. All right. I'd also like to say the parking. You're asking for easement on the parking. All right. What happens when you go to, if you get an easement, what happens when you go to sell it? In order to sell the building, it's got to have 31 parking spots. Otherwise, somebody's going to buy a building that they can't use. All right. You don't show a loading dock. You don't show a receiving area. And one of the things in the bylaws says that you are not allowed to store any soil, compost, fertilizer, or equipment, meaning a van, outside. They all need to be stored inside, and you have not shown where these are being stored and how they're being stored. Okay. As far as the police, I mean, I'd rather not see a company put a police over in an area that you have no jurisdiction in. Hire the police department that we have, because you know you don't have any right to arrest anybody or anything like that. You're stepping onto our property. All right. Hire somebody from the town. Okay. I agree with what everybody says. It went way too fast, and I'll be honest and I'll say it, the board has not done a thorough job. The host agreement wasn't done properly. Select board didn't do a proper job. I'm not saying that everybody's perfect, but it was pushed through too fast. And that's all I have to say.
Laboring company. All right, thank you very much. Hand up, okay, sure, okay, we'll. Fred Braun?
Yes, sir.
No.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, my name is Fred Braun, and I'll try to be brief as well. My questions really relate to the financial information or lack thereof. If the applicant had an existing operation and the request for a special permit on Quarry Road was simply an expansion, you probably would have asked for financial statements and or tax returns of the existing business. However, that is not the case here. This situation is a startup, a venture capital business, to draw a simple analogy. As far as I know, no financial information has been provided. What is the capital investment into the project and who are its investors? How can you be assured that whatever that amount is sufficient to complete the project contemplated? Where is there a breakdown of construction costs? Has the applicant provided a forecasted profit and loss statement with the appropriate assumptions and schedules of expenses? How can you feel comfortable that the revenue you expect to generate for the town can be realized? I've been involved in economic development for over 40 years, and I'm currently chairman of an industrial development agency. Absent that financial information, unfortunately, you are flying on a wing and a prayer. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, sir. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back now to Michael, who's had and I guess you want to address some of the issues that have been raised. Michael, you're up.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'd actually like to start by, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we can.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much. So yeah, I actually took a lot of notes there and will address the majority of these different components. I would love for any one of my peers or counterparts to go ahead and step in at any time that they feel that they need to. I have, sorry, is there a mic? Okay, there we go. We also have a number of folks that bring their level of expertise to help us to answer some of these questions. So I'm just going to go ahead and start at the top. As far as the zoning regarding indoor and outdoor and needing 7 acres, we have no problem removing that outside acre, or better yet, we'll stick up a temporary structure over that space and consider that space to not meet your need or the need for that additional. Our intention, like originally stated the first number of times, was to put up a greenhouse on that space. And so we are quite content in the square footage is the square footage and will remain the square footage. Whether it's outdoor or indoor, it makes no difference to us, with the exception that that temporary structure, if required to be meeting zoning, would meet it. But for right now, that outdoor field is not a necessity. Rather, it was a placeholder for us. for the additional greenhouses, if that was ever going to be of our future. Again, most of these business decisions, like any business and any business plan, is part of the secret sauce of the organization and is actually controlled by the Cannabis Control Commission and regulated by them. Those are the folks that we submit these things to 99% of the time with any of these submissions. And so those are the folks, due to the fact that that is the secret sauce of how pieces and parts are done. Our business plan, our financial information, the fact that the finances are actually in an account, all of these things are done by the Cannabis Control Commission. And so the reality is for our side of the fence, or for the requirement, as far as an indoor, outdoor overlay, and your bylaws, you feel specified now that we've been doing this over a month and a year and a quarter for the first time, are kind of bringing it around that it was never intended on overlapping, but the plan has always been to have an indoor and an outdoor field from the day that we started presenting it until today. But again, if that now comes into light, that's great. We can deal with that at another level. It doesn't need to be a part of our total plan. It does. I don't think you guys have to approve the zoning of a field, though. Bob, do you guys approve a field or require a farmer to outline the field that they're going to be used to approve their site plan?
All right. You're getting it. That's
No, I didn't know. So that field isn't really part of a required site plan definition necessarily. We can consider that whatever. We can remove that from the plan if that's required, but I don't think it changes our plan in any way, shape, or form, quite frankly. But we can go back to that. As far as the lease factor, our lease to own agreement is also something that is controlled and moderated within the Cannabis Control Commission. To include anything deeded, it is a lease to own. It is up to the Metcalfs on what they wish to disclose about their business and how that transcends. But it, by every which way, shape, or form, meets the bylaws. It meets the laws of the Cannabis Control Commission in regards to us being in possession of that property. Not only does the town require it, but the Cannabis Control Commission requires it. And so we'll leave it to the Metcalfs to actually be able to divulge, if they want to, the contractual obligations. We will be in control of that property, and the Metcalfs are here to actually define that we are in that. They've been at every one of these meetings to define that equivalent, whether that requires a closing or whether that requires something contractual by the town that's higher than what this agreement already is, which by the Cannabis Control Commission, it does not. So oddly enough, it is a lease to own. And again, I'll leave it to the Metcalfs to divulge their business to the town. As far as the air quality is concerned, our community host agreement does outline exactly how we are going to take care of that. We are using an olfactometer, which is one of the things that your folks were asking us to use 5 meetings ago, maybe 6 meetings ago when we addressed this. And we as a whole group then, with all the people who attended, with all of the notices that we had sent out and informed, with all of the postings that were in the websites, we all universally defined that there was a need, and we went back legally and got that covered within the community host agreement. Realistically, there will be no odor coming from the greenhouse. That is the requirement, which means there will not be an odor. The terpenes or the chemicals that are concerns are in the skunk cabbage that are throughout that equivalent wetlands. That skunk cabbage and the measurements of that terpene of the skunk cabbage, which is the exact same terpene that's found in cannabis, literally exact same terpene, will be measured on our boundaries and on our borders. It will be measured from the front. It'll be measured from the back. Hopefully, it's not this skunk cabbage that's causing a person to have a distinct smell, but that is something that we will analyze with current technology that is available today, and we will understand that new technology is being engineered every day for these things. With that, our contractual obligations are yet to be defined on how that remediation happens. We will remediate. We've defined we would remediate all to the point of removing a crop if that is the requirement because we can't remediate the issue. And so if folks who have odor concerns want to go back and look or listen to the previous agreements or documents or notes or minutes, they're more than welcome to. However, we have addressed the odor concern to the extent that it could be possibly taken. Now, we asked very specifically about a number of types of technology that we might use: cannon busters, fog cannons, pressure pumps, other things. These technologies are innovating all the time. And this crop isn't going to be growing for another 6 to 8 months. I would never buy a computer that I plan to use 8 months from now today. The technology advances. We will use the best technology and we will remediate the issue to the definition that we gave the town, to include potentially destroying our crop. We can't go much further than that, folks. That is as deep and as good as it can get. Quite frankly, as far as techniques, guinea pigs to the town, I would like to just momentarily introduce Dr. McNabb. So Bob, can I introduce one of the leading experts within the cannabis industry to have a discussion around two of these points? One is going to be the proximity to the school, and the other for me would also be around our credibility within the industry. But before I burden Dr. McNabb for that, I just wanted to isolate, for those folks that haven't had a chance in the past to hear what we do and what our credibility actually is, I want to remind everybody. We advise the Department of Agriculture. We advise the Department of Consumer Protection. We advise the National Institute of Chemical Engineers. We advise lobbyists, legislators, governors in the state of Connecticut and the state of Massachusetts around cannabis. We've testified at almost every major event over the past 10 years. We speak at MassCan as the experts, at UConn. We speak at every major event, and you should probably look this up because it's published and posted everywhere. We support veteran programs, STEM organizations. We have an abused and battered women's program and foundation. We have a children's foundation, an AIDS foundation, multiple food shelters, and multiple hospitals who we not only donate our personal time, but our products and capabilities to. In the state of Connecticut, we help 44 farmers with their current cannabis cultivation. We are seen as the experts. We have 65 farms across the country who we advise from planting to the end result and consumer output and goods. Currently, those farms include teachers, it includes police, firefighters, brand new people, women-owned, minority-owned, emergency medical technicians. The list goes on and is endless. We have 3 colleges, which we have 6 different interns for, that all work directly for us. We are considered the experts in what we do. And if there's anybody who really needs more information on that, it is all over the internet, or come and have discussions with us. And we would love to have those discussions. In regards to techniques indoors and outdoors, I think we just covered that. Experiences, these are not experiences, folks. These are not guesses. We've been doing this since 2015 with UConn. We are the most experienced hemp farmers in the state of Connecticut and Massachusetts. The wetlands, as in regards to the reports of the wetlands and our proximity to those borders, there was information done within our engineers, and I stand behind what those site plans are that have been there. The parking, a shared parking is absolutely not out of the norm for any of these types of facilities. In fact, it was included in our site plan simply because we had to include it for our security. It has to be a part of our security plan and part of the site plan. If Metcalf's plan on putting in an additional site plan to put in those parking spaces, then that can be accomplished. The reality is those parking spaces will be there as long as they're approved on that lot, and we will be leasing from them. Multiple dispensaries in the state of Massachusetts do that today, and multiple grow facilities. And there is no problems with ownership or other variables that might pop in. They are a consistent practice within our cannabis industry. In regards to the application, our application must be filed before, sorry, I'm not going to follow that note. I apologize. Let me step back. In regards to the building and what the building looks like, this is a greenhouse. It is a greenhouse. We all know what a greenhouse looks like. A greenhouse is a greenhouse. It has no look other than a greenhouse. It's not a specialized building. It doesn't have specialized windows. It doesn't have offensive components. As far as light leakage from the greenhouse, there will be no light leakage whatsoever from the greenhouse. That was very specifically mandated. We actually, in our documentation, map out the multi-tiered approach at blackout lighting or at blackout protection that have been put into this design. And so our ability to implement and protect that light is extensive. The lights that exist on the outside for security purposes or for parking purposes, those were the lights that we were explaining would be pointing down and not reflecting. Excuse me. As far as noise, this is a greenhouse. We explained the decibels of what our generator was because when the original question was asked about noise and noise pollution, folks, this is a greenhouse. Most people are building indoor facilities. Those indoor facilities produce huge amounts of noise because they're constantly generating and processing. We are utilizing the sun when we can. When we can't use the sun, we're using lights to offset the sun. We're using geothermal to heat our building. We have no impact. Our environmental footprint here is one of the greatest designs that exist in the cannabis industry right now. We are using multiple technologies to reduce our impact and consumption on electricity. The reason that our application is where it is right now is simply because of how green and efficient we are going to be in comparison to the current cannabis cultivation facilities that are out there. In regards to so in regards to elevations, let me pause for 1 minute. Bob, might I ask Dr. McNabb to take 2 minutes and discuss the quarry component?
That would be fine, okay? Speaking on behalf of your company, please let him speak now, okay?
Yes, Dr. Marion McNabb, would you please speak for us?
Yes. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Good evening. My name is Dr. Marion McNabb, and I am a representative on the Cannabis Advisory Board in Massachusetts. And I would like to speak in relation to the comments around the 500 buffer zone and around the quarry being a place where children congregate. In fact, that is, the buffer zone, the establishment actually is not around a place where children congregate. Rather, it is at a school entrance. And so I believe that Tetrahydra is in compliance here. And it also sounds like a lot of the concerns from the community were raised without having actually seen the revised plans. I think, Michael and his team giving good responses, but the public should be aware that maybe some plans have changed, and although they haven't seen it, the company has addressed it. I would also like to speak to the credibility of the company and the team members, building on what Michael Goodenough said. My experience working with him and his team is that very credible in the sense that he is, a leader in the industry, has demonstrated expertise and experience around cultivation. And as he's mentioned, some of the state-of-the-art, features in terms of odor mitigation and air quality have been included. And also, the quality of the work that he's done to date, I think would make this town very happy. So I'll go ahead and stop there for now, and happy to continue to jump in.
Thanks, Doc. Appreciate it. In regards to the water consumption, in our plan, we also included water consumption. We are very, very, very protective of the water consumption. We're not going to be consuming more than 4.5 households worth of water. We use drip line irrigation. We use irrigation that controls the amount of water that goes out. There is no leakage that comes from my pots. We control every bit of that. Water is not only precious, but using 6 gallons of water on a plant that contains 10 gallons of soil would flush every bit of nutrients out of that pot. What's happening in California is very different than what's happening here in the East Coast. And in fact, we have to monitor our water and report that monitoring back over to the Cannabis Control Commission. We are governed. That water consumption, we have protected that water consumption and practiced those water practices within our own greenhouses. And we have studies of every single one of my zones within our greenhouses over the past 10 years and how much water has been consumed by our pots based on the size of the plants. These plants grow. A seedling does not consume the same as a 10 or 8 foot plant consumes. You can't generalize and say, this is how much water every day is going to be consumed. There's one time, and that's the end of the life of these plants, that they're going to be consuming a large amount of water. And that one time, we're going to be controlling them. However, to control their size, we can also control their size based on water. And so the bottom line is our water consumption is minimal. It's actually less than the current foliage and trees that exist in its footprint today. And that we've given you hard numbers on. The security concerns. That quarry, folks, has not only was shut down as an industrial hazard, but is a hazard that we were warned by the security and other police that there are threats, there are people and things being set on fire. It was a concern for us that quarry exists, and that is the reason that we would be employing a off-duty police officer who knows the letter of the law and what can and cannot be done. It's not a townsperson. It is and in fact, they were motivated by the fact that we could utilize some of the police department. And so we saw it as a way for us to bond, a way for us to enhance our own security capabilities by working closely with local police. And we will accommodate whoever the best security professional is for the job, for that added security, if there are those concerns. And again, in the beginning, we offered to point one of our security cams at the quarry and the parking lot of that quarry, which again has had so many reports. And these aren't things Mike's making up. These are things published in your same Berkshire Eagles. These are things, there has been numerous articles that have specified the hazard that come from that space. So to see it as a children's congregating area is not something that we took into consideration. We would love to bring back a new layer of security to that quarry so that it could become something, which, by the way, medically, children are using cannabis too, folks. And as long as a doctor prescribes it, there is a very different approach to what we were talking about. This is a crop. And so the concern about that quarry was directed more towards us as opposed to from us to there. Storage of soil, vans, and other things. As a farm, we will practice our soil reclamation. We will reclaim our soil. The vans, we don't have vans. We're not doing large means transportation. Everything's in the greenhouse and in a pot. It's not a large field. For the field work that we were going to be doing, we would be bringing in equipment, and that equipment would be leaving. However, the reality is that as far as any large scale equipment or storage of that, it would be within that head house space. And the reason that we haven't provided a exact layout of what that is, quite frankly, is the cost of steel has skyrocketed, and we're still dealing with a number of designs for the different floor layouts. The square footage is well defined. How those rooms are going to be used is well defined within our security layout. But that security plan is something that's privy to the security side. We can't give the layout of our footprint for someone to be able to actually come in and break into that footprint. And we will provide it to those that we need to. But point blank, that head house is also our security point. It is also where we're going to have our security, store our cannabis. It's where we're going to process our cannabis. And that is something that is governed by the Cannabis Control Commission. And that is something that's governed by our security and our security plan and our security company. The final thing that I would like to just kind of throw out there, Our financial plan, our business plan, again, this is a booming industry. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to do it at the same farm level that we always have. And with that, I'd like to actually also ask if I can have Nina Stetzel speak for 2 seconds. She's actually one of our farmers and can speak to, I think our credibility has really been at question and really can speak to some of that credibility.
All right, fine. We'll let Nina speak. Nina, unmute yourself and address the board.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. You know, after listening to everything that was going on tonight, I am not here to speak to any of the issues relating to your town's regulations, but to speak about Mike and the cannabis business. Again, my name is Nina Steitzel. I'm a hemp farmer in Connecticut. I've known and worked with Mike Goodenough and his team at Aztec for 4 years or more when my family got involved in growing hemp. I find him to be an honest, helpful individual that my family values his extensive knowledge of all cannabis issues, such as legal, state, and federal, the farming issues, natural pesticides, his passion to protect the environment, harvesting, the processing, and selling cannabis products. I call him my cannabis commissioner. He's my go-to man for all information about cannabis. I know many of communities and individuals are very reluctant to support and embrace the cannabis business. The world is changing, and it's important that we all accept the changes. I, being from the older generation, was totally against getting involved in the cannabis business. But after, the younger generation within our family presented it to us, and after much research and learning the benefits for cannabis, I supported my family getting involved in the business, and I'm glad we did. My community and neighbors also embrace and enjoy our outdoor farming of cannabis. I think and trust that our lawmakers on the federal, state, and the community level, such as yourself, would not have passed laws for the cannabis business to move forward if they did not feel it would be safe and be a benefit to the public. I will end by saying Mike is not only a good businessman, a friend, but a veteran and has supported many community organizations. Mike isn't good enough, he's the best. And I hope that you will support his request for the cannabis business within your community and hope that you find solutions to make this plan work instead of finding things to go against the project. And remember, this is farming. This isn't a great big industrial building that's going to go up and really, make a difference in the footprint of your community. Thank you for giving me the time to talk. And Mike, good luck with this project.
Thank you, Nina. I sincerely appreciate it. Quality of life, before I hand this back off to Brian, you guys speak of quality of life and speak of the community, and I swear to you, we will do everything we can to improve all that we can at every corner that we can. And I say that with my whole heart. And not only will we give everything we can to help to improve the environment, there is a wellness that comes with cannabis. And Jeremy, I don't know if you're available, but Bob, I'd like to actually have Jeremy Keys take 2 seconds and just speak of the wellness that this has brought to himself. Jeremy, are you still there?
I am here, Mike.
Bob, is that okay too? This will be the end of my moment.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, sir.
We have a couple of other people up there that have their hands raised. One of them, one is spoken and one is not spoken, so we may go through those two. But pretty much we're almost done here. So
yep,
we'll let Jeremy speak, and then we'll go on to the other two, and that will be it.
All right, thank you. And thank you everyone for taking the time. Real quick, just to introduce myself, my name is Jeremy Keys, and I'm actually the general manager at D&G. And my background is actually in construction, engineering, and advanced manufacturing. I've been an aerospace engineer when I was 22 years old. However, I apologize a little bit for the fluctuation in my voice. I get a little emotional. When I was 22, I had my entire life thrown away from me. I have muscular dystrophy. It's a form of it's called McArdle's disease. And my body just completely gave up on me at the peak of my life. And not to say that that is a terrible thing to have happen, but today I'm here. When I was in a hospital 3 years ago, after being life-starved and having my legs almost amputated from my body, I needed to change something, and I found cannabis. I was told all my life that it was the wrong thing, and it shouldn't be in my life. However, I needed to look for something because status quo was not what was working. I went and I changed my life completely. I've lost 100 pounds. I'm in the best shape of my life. I can move around. Every day I wake up, I take my son to school. I'm around life. I am so blessed today. And what I really need you to know is where that blessings have come from. When I reached out a year ago to Mike, I had actually asked him. I said, Mike, I'm in really bad shape. I need some help. I'm currently using cannabis, but at the time it was just marijuana, and I didn't know what it wasn't doing for me and what I needed more of. Mike pointed me in the right direction. He taught me everything I needed to know, what I'm missing in my life in order to make myself better. And this isn't any magic. This isn't smoke and mirrors. This is true medicine. This has been done for generations, thousands of years. This is what's helping people come alive. And with that being said, I mean, today I work a full-time job again, and I'm so thankful and so blessed for that. And with that, Mike, I'll pass it back off to you.
We would not survive without you, dude. And I appreciate you and very much. Bob, I'm done. Brian, is there anything you want to
I
add?
have a couple of individuals that had their hand raised. Okay. What's his name? Can you hear us? Unmute.
I do. May I speak?
Unmute yourself, sir.
I have now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? I do promise to be very, very brief. I want to congratulate everybody on a civil discussion this evening. That's a very good thing. I have just a couple of quick comments regarding the testimonies that Mike Goodenough has asked of today. First of all, Mike, every time you hear, you get praised for your work as a veteran, for your history as a veteran. Thank you for your service. I'm sitting in a veterans hospital where I work. I have a lot of veterans who do not get special treatment for that. Jeremy, I am very glad that marijuana has been good for you. As a physician, sorry, I'm at work at the moment. I have seen people have good effects from marijuana. I've seen people have bad effects from marijuana. Marijuana emesis syndrome, marijuana dependency. It just doesn't matter. That is not the point of the discussion, Jeremy, and I'm glad that it has worked for you. We are talking about whether this industrial farm belongs in our neighborhood. Regarding Dr. McNabb, thank you for coming in as an expert. I appreciate that, but I think people need to know that your thesis for your doctorate, which was probably very good, is about continuing medical education in Vietnam. I don't see where you have qualifications as an expert. You are on the board of the Massachusetts Cannabis Advisory Board. You are a commercial member of that board, and so I do not see you as a neutral player. And Ms. Steitzel, again, I'm sure this has worked for you. You are growing marijuana in an area where you say your neighbors want it. That is, again, irrelevant to our discussion here. Our discussion is not about the worth of marijuana, the expertise. It is only about whether it belongs in this area. And then finally, I will close with the comment that nonetheless, I appreciate that you three have the right to your opinions, but there are now 76. There were before almost 90 people on this call, and I have not seen a single one of my neighbors here to speak up for this farm. It is clear that the neighborhood in Becket does not wish this farm in the area, and I really think that one needs to account for that. One needs to recognize that if the law allows the flexibility for the board to choose, because this is a special permit, then the board should reflect the will of its own community. Thank you, and I will stop there. Good night.
Thank you, sir. All right, there are two individuals who are left. There is John, you've spoken before, okay, so if there are no other hands, you've already had a chance to speak, okay? I will let you speak. I want you to be brief, okay? And I'm not going to accept any more conversations after that, because those people all had an opportunity to raise their hands. So you're speaking for the second time, sir. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you very well.
I just want to go over two things. Little contradiction. We listened to Mr. Gooden go about a greenhouse, everything like that. We were at a meeting today, a walkthrough, and Mr. Vincent's going, it's a building, it's enclosed. So you got to get your story straight if you're going to try to pass it on. All right. And second, I'd like to say there's a difference between recreational marijuana and hemp. Mr. Gooden, do you have any recreational facilities, or everything you have hemp? Because all you've been hearing from is hemp farmers, hemp this and hemp that. Two different growing things. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There are no other hands raised. All right, okay, John. Yes, go ahead. We'll let you speak, and you're the last person to speak because I have no other hands raised. Oh, Karen Galbert. Well, since she's never spoken, I'll let her speak first.
Thank you, Mr. Ronzio. This is Karen Carlberg, and I live actually in the western part of Becket, at 63 Becket West Road. And I think what Mr. Pillinger just said, and I would like to emphasize it very strongly, because we have had the same situation in our neighborhood where the will of the neighborhood, the people that live there who are in Becket here every night, we stay here, we live here, we work here, we want our voices heard. And what Mr. Pillinger said was the board should reflect the will of the community. You have got a community up on Quarry Road that is telling you something, and I don't think you have the right to just ignore them. I know that you've done this before in other areas regarding some.
If you're not attacking me, I'm going to shut you off. Okay? You understand where you're going with this?
Yes, I'm just saying that
you've got one warning. Continue in this vein, okay? And we're shutting you right down.
I can't understand you. You're very garbled. All I want to say is that the people who live in these communities, we should be heard. We will be heard. That's all I want to say.
Thank you very much. All right, we have one more person. Yes, sir. Doctor. Yes. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, ma'am. Ma'am, sorry. Excuse yourself. Dr. McNabb, can you hear me?
All right. Sorry, it is a little bit hard to hear you. Thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to comment on the fact that Michael Goodenough is a veteran, and thank you for your service. And just to note for the town and the townspeople that the Cannabis Control Commission in the state actually does give priority access for veterans in the industry, and so just something to keep in mind as the deliberations move forward. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay.
You're on.
We have heard from all the people.
Bob, I think Adrian left.
Is there Adrian and Josh? Okay, Adrian and Josh have never been heard. All right. So if you would like to speak and address the board, you may do so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for the opportunity. First, a point of clarification. I have absolutely signed, as the owner of Happy Medium LLC, a lease with Michael and Brian and Tetrahydra AgTech, so that is a done deal. I have to just wonder at the last year plus time at all of the problems that have seemed to be raised by this issue. And I just have to wonder at the motivation and about quality of life. I'm going to read a little short thing from the Simple Sabotage Field Manual, which was published by the OSS in 1944. These are the ways to sabotage. Bring up irrelevant issues as frequently as possible. Haggle over precise wordings of communication, minutia, and resolutions. Refer back to matters decided at the last meeting and attempt to reopen the advisability of that decision. I would say that for about a year now, and over a year, that the people in this neighborhood, if you want to consider the neighborhood to be 2 miles, which some of the people live 2 miles away or more and are complaining about something that's never going to affect them, which is the smell. I have to wonder at the motivation. I just have to wonder, because there is a quality of life question here when I find out that one of the main issues within some of the most fervent detractors from this project has been that Josh and I do not have the right to retire on money from our land. I just have to wonder. So I consider that a quality of life issue for myself and my husband, for us and the farm that we have worked and fed some of you for, all right, it wasn't 20 years, it was only about 10 years. Where's our quality of life in this mix? Oh, you're gonna have to see a greenhouse. Gee, really? Is that so horrible? Is that really so horrible? Are you visually going to be impacted and going to have to go screaming and ashamed of the neighborhood because people in the town are going to have jobs? Because there's going to be money coming to the town? Really? Is that such a horrible thing? I wonder at this neighborhood, honestly. So many of the reasons that there were changes by both Michael and Brian were to answer the very concerns you repeatedly brought up again and again and again. So they researched, they found answers, they changed things, they looked at the wetlands, they went back there, they found they needed to make changes in answer to your complaints, your, what did they call them? Communication workings, minutia, bring up things that have been settled in the past as frequently as possible. That's called sabotage. Why? I just have to wonder who you all are, that this has been your life's journey for the last year. Thank you.
And I'd love to say a lot more, but I'm going to hold it.
Thank you very much for your input. And at this point in time, Yes, is there anybody else that has anything to say? I don't think there's anyone that's got their hand raised or whatever. All right, so at this point in time, okay, it is the board that is going to close the public hearing, all right? And the time is now 9:15, all right? And so the hearing is closed, okay? The next step in this process is the deliberation by the board. Board members are going to discuss the application, all the information that they received. They're going to share their views. They're going to identify any kind of relevant or credible evidence. And then we're going to assess compliance with all the standards that are available to us. And at that point in time, we will then call for a decision. I do not believe that the board is ready to make that decision tonight. So what I'm going to ask the board to do is to basically think about everything that has been said, not only tonight, but all throughout the process. We have some issues that I think we may need to look into. And unless there is a board member right now board members that would like to speak, we could go and we'll set a date time certain as to when we are going to reconvene and basically render our decision. Is there any board member that would like to speak? James, would you like to say anything at this point in time?
I think there was a lot of concerns brought up.
Who's speaking? Gail.
Gail, did you ask me to speak, sir?
Fine. Gail, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't, I thought James was going to speak, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I'm sorry.
Wait a minute, you're muted, okay, we gotta unmute you, Gail. You muted yourself, Gail. Unmute yourself.
Bob, I hear
Now I can hear you.
I couldn't understand what you were saying, Bob. I apologize for that.
Okay, well, fine. I'll stand out here and I will basically say that, once the public hearing is closed, okay, then what happens with the board? You're quite committee. You've been on the board for as long as even longer than I have, okay? And you were the chair for probably longer than I've been the chair, okay? So you know the rules, okay? The next step in this phase is a deliberation by the board. Yes. Right, so the question is there was a lot of information. Do we want to discuss any of that right now? Or do we want to take some time and basically think about it and then come back, reconvene this meeting, in a week or two and then render the discussion and basically render our decision?
I think there's been a lot of process and information brought up tonight that should be gone over, sir. And I feel as though we should not render a decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And you're out there. All right. Since I can't see you, all right, can you see me or hear me? And you're going to have, Crowley, you're going to have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for leading our meeting very competently, I must say. And I agree with Gail that there are a lot of issues, ramifications, details that we should still be looking at and considering. So I would prefer to continue this meeting before we render any decisions.
Okay, but it is, and then during the deliberation process, just so that everybody understands, that is a process where the board gets to deliberate. Okay, the board is going to talk back and forth on these things. Maybe we'll come to some kind of a conclusion. Maybe we won't come to some kind of a conclusion. We will then, and if we get to a point where we feel that we can render a decision, we will then vote on it, and we'll either approve this application or deny this application.
All right, let me have a question here.
Sure.
If the next time, let's say, because the hour is getting late, we get together, at that point, can we just do deliberations, knowing that we have a plethora of input by the residents and the attendees, both the applicants and the attendees, and then we can just spend the time talking about it without any further input. Is that possible?
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, we have received all the input that we are going to receive, okay? At this point in time, okay? I mean, at some point, this process could go on forever, okay? We could continue this public hearing for, another month until we get, or a month after that, or 3 months after that, okay? I heard some of the people that were basically saying, we would like to have a decision rendered soon, okay, sooner rather than later. That the project, in some cases, they said they would like to see the project, denied, okay. Well, yeah, that's a possibility, okay. It could be that the board decides to move in that route, but it's now up to the board, okay. The period of input is now over, okay. And so, it's, as I said, the rules of the game are we're into the deliberative phase. Al?
Yes, I think there's several significant issues that need to be solved, and have the meeting just on this within the next 2 weeks in order.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Attorney Greenwald, just very briefly, I just want to make the point that if input is closed, which I understand, then the applicant also can't submit any new information. And if that does happen, we would ask that the public hearing be reopened. That's all I have to say.
Exactly, okay. We have heard what you said, okay. And I am absolutely in disagreement with some of the things that you have said to us, okay. All right, they were actually, I've got it in a written document here. I can show you where you're wrong. All right. So, lawyers, everybody has an opinion, and lawyers represent their clients, and that's exactly what we did here. Thank you very much, sir. All right.
What did Ronzio say? You can show it the way.
A sort of personal attack.
Pardon me?
I just want to respond briefly by saying I don't understand what you said. It has to do with what I said. But if there's no input, the hearing has to be reopened.
There's no need to repeat, okay? Yes, a logistical question.
May not be able to applicant. One issue that needs to be resolved about 5 acres.
All right, okay.
And if they want to submit a new change to the site plan showing only one facility, yes, have to
But then you're gonna have
here.
Can't close the public hearing. Right. All right, so there's an opportunity to, if we don't close the hearing today, okay, then, well, they can vote on it. They have to vote first, okay? So, yeah, that's one of the issues, okay? We heard Michael say, I think it was Michael Goodenough, say that they would be willing to remove the outdoor grow facility and just go with the indoor grow facility. If they go with the indoor grow facility, right, then they meet all the requirements because they have more than 2 acres. They've got, the setback requirements are all met. And so, they would have to submit a new plan to show us the elimination of that, or some written statement to say that that no longer is part of it. Yes, James.
You mentioned also cover all bases and other fees.
Bob, we can't hear him.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. I hear what you're saying. What James is saying is that we could allow them to withdraw this application without prejudice and then restart the whole process. Okay. I don't really think we need to do that, James. Okay. I think that, that happens to be one of the issues that needs to be addressed, okay, as to whether or not it's, an outdoor grow facility or an indoor grow facility. And if they agreed to do it as an indoor grow facility, then certainly they meet the two acre requirement, okay? As far as the amount of cannabis that can be grown in that facility is dependent upon, how much they can fit within the footprint, okay? And then, if they're insistent about the outdoor grow, which obviously Michael has said that they are not, okay, that they would eliminate that, then, that would change the thing. Is there anything else that you think?
The other is much more minor, but that the elevation shown in the site plan, that they need to be structured and this one's intermediate.
Can't hear.
All right, basically what Al is saying is that we need to look at the site plan, okay? We need to look at the requirements in the site plan, which is under, not 6.8, but under 9 point, I think it's 9.4 or somewhere. I'll look it up right now as soon as I get my computer.
It's 9.4.5. General, environmental, design, traffic parking. It's 9.4.
Hold on. 9.4.1. I just had to wake up my computer.
Well, from what I'm looking at, 9.4.5 and 0.6 for the decision, and 0.7. It's 9.4. The review procedure.
0.4.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No. I'm reading it right now. Okay, just give me a second.
Anna's correct.
Thanks.
I'm in design, okay? I'm just, let's see. All around it, and then setback, placement of parking, landscape, entrances and exits. All right, I don't see it there either. Loading doors.
And we haven't heard from the Conservation Commission, unless I missed something.
The Conservation Commission, all right, and, we can always, if depending upon whether we deny or approve it, if we approve the proposal, it would be contingent upon the input of the Conservation Commission regarding, them meeting all the requirements. And we heard some things today when we were out at the site visit that basically said that there was a question as to whether it was a stream, an intermittent stream, whether it was a perennial stream, whether the term stream was something else, but that's all conservation, right?
Anybody see in here where it says the height of the building has to be stated by somebody on the phone?
Yeah, the size of the building, it looks like.
Hold on, I've got the model right in front of me. 9.3. 9.4. 9.4. 0.3.
We have the criteria 9.3.2.
Building elevation and traffic plan.
Correct.
All right. Site plan shall include landscape, which they did, the utilities, which they did address. Okay. The drainage information, which has been addressed in that report, and then it says building elevation and the traffic plan. Okay. And so, the question, well, you didn't provide the elevation, but
No building elevation.
And the intrusion of lighting That's environmental,
What?
intrusion of noise.
They addressed those.
Those are addressed, okay, those aren't in in this section.
That's fine, they should have done it.
Well, how is it addressed? Addressed adequately?
Yeah,
Not adequately addressed.
Elevation, if the elevation is required.
Right, the elevations aren't there.
So, I mean, what we can do is, I said, we can continue this, okay, and,
Right, that's why
we can request that they provide us with that documentation, but then, if we do that, then we're gonna have to, continue the public hearing session, so that people will have an opportunity to address the.
We have to see it.
and elimination of the.
And the reduction of the site, it's just, because they moved the building forward, because the building was originally up there, it was had to do with COVID, right? And, things were starting to get better, and the company, the people are going back to work, so, they should be able to give us that information in a short period of time. Or we could just continue the hearing until, a date time certain. And then we continue the public input at that point in time.
But legally, can we do that or not?
No.
Oh, yes, we can, okay?
But I think they're gonna have to withdraw without prejudice. As much as they've gone through a lot to get through this, there's still a lot of information that needs to be in this plan, okay? And the public has the right to give information, to look at this information too.
Well, that's
And if
what
it's not all
I said.
there, then they should withdraw without prejudice.
No, they don't have to withdraw without prejudice. All we have to do is continue this hearing until a date time certain, as long as they can address those issues in that time, then, the public will have an opportunity to address those specific issues, okay? Not revisit everything that's been discussed already.
But we've closed the public hearing too, Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We have a vote, yeah.
You never voted, Gail.
So we did.
Not close, okay? Under the open meeting law guidelines, that are promulgated under Governor Baker's proclamation, okay, or emergency order, that this has to be a roll call vote on everything, and we didn't do that.
Correct.
So, if I guess we're still back in that, phase as to whether or not we're going to allow them to do this
Okay.
or answer those questions, those specific questions that were raised by Al, or we're going to go on to the deliberative phase, and then we would render a decision as to whether or not it was going to be approved or disapproved.
I'm wondering if we could go provision by provision when we do make our decision. Go through, let's say 9.4.7 conditions, number 1, number 2, number 3, and then we can discuss each one, our concerns about in relation to each one, and then come to a decision, a conclusion, as we discuss each segment of the law. Right now, we seem to be all over the place with different issues that were brought up. I'm not denigrating the issues, but we have a blueprint, a checklist, really, in our bylaws. And in order to do a proper job, we should go through that checklist one by one.
Okay. At this point in time, okay, what I need to do is I'm going to call for continuation of this meeting until a date time certain. When are you guys going to be available? You want to do it? This month? All right, I'm looking at it. We're looking at February, and today is the 9th.
I'm getting my calendar.
The 20th. How about Select board meets on the first and third, so we've got the 23rd. Would you be okay if on the 23rd? All right, okay, 23rd. How about you, Will? Al's gonna open up his calendar, okay? Gail, how about you on the 23rd?
Is there a time on the 23rd, Bob?
It would be the same time. We would meet at 6 o'clock. That's our new standard time.
And the 23rd is what day, please, Bob?
Wednesday, February 23rd.
Fine with me.
Right. So we got 2 people that are good. I'm good with that date. All right. How about?
I'm okay with that day too, Bob.
All right. Anne's good with
Okay.
that date. Gail. Gail,
Yes, sir.
are you good with that date?
I did say that. Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, I thought it was Ann that said it.
I was. She didn't say
And,
it. It
and
was
Gail
me.
said
Dr. How
it.
about Dr. Warren? Is Dr. He hasn't been here all night? Not that doctor, okay? All right then, so roll call vote, all right? The motion is to continue this hearing until. I'm making the motion. Motion is that I'm making is that we continue this hearing until a date time certain, that date being February 23rd at 6 p.m. All right, and we will, what we're looking for from Brian and, well, that's it. That's the motion. Okay, that's the motion. I'm getting to.
I second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Do you address as to what they're going to bring to the meeting? No. Yes. I think they already know. We've already discussed. All right. So, hearing no further discussion. All right. I'm going to call for the vote. All right. Al, how do you vote? Aye. All right. James, how do you vote? Aye. Ann, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Gail, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Bob Ronzio votes aye. You guys have it. All right, we're going to basically continue this hearing until the 23rd. All right, Brian, you've heard the discussion. You know what we're going to be discussing. We know that I'm sure you'll be able to address those, or if you won't, then we'll go one way or the other at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Brian, are you aware of what we've discussed?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, you used the word hearing. Did you mean hearing or meeting?
Meeting. Okay. Sorry about that.
I think the motion said hearing.
What?
I think the motion said hearing.
It did.
All right. Okay. The motion. It was a public hearing, okay? And we didn't close the public hearing. We have continued the public hearing, right? And basically what I'm going to need from Brian Vincent, are you agree with this? Brian?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
I agree. So
Yeah, we agree.
We're going to start. You're going to get a document in the mail on Friday, right, about the continuance, which you need to sign, and I will sign for the board. All right, and we will continue this meeting until the 23rd.
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay. My hearing for the 23rd. Hearing the meeting, getting the 2 words confused. Okay. I should be a lawyer. All right. All right. We still have a couple of items on the agenda, folks. Okay, that we haven't addressed, and the rest of you don't really need to be ashamed. If you want to leave, you can. All right. And I will go through those with the rest of the board members. Okay. That happens to be 3B, which is the Becket Master Plan. And I'm going to take that up with correspondence from Adele Levine regarding the development of a